H1. The Misdelivered Letter. Olivia Reed blew warm breath into her cupped hands as she hurried down the snow-dusted street. February in Boston was unforgiving, and the worn wool coat she'd thrifted 3 winters ago did little against the biting wind. Her violin case knocked against her hip with each step, a familiar companion on her daily journey. At 29, Olivia wasn't where she'd imagined she would be, a part-time music teacher by day and a cafe performer by night. She'd watched her conservatory classmates advance to prestigious orchestras, while her own career remained in a holding pattern of almost opportunities and near misses. The Harrington Fellowship for Emerging Musicians was her last real chance. The deadline was tomorrow, and Olivia had poured everything into her application letter, not just her musical qualifications, but her heart. The kind of letter you write at 3 a.m. when honesty flows easier than at any other hour. Building 1617, 1619, she muttered, scanning the elegant brownstones. There, 1621. The brass plaque read Harrington Music Foundation, and Olivia carefully slipped her envelope into the mail slot. She released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, and smiled. It was done. 3 days later, Olivia was arranging sheet music for her afternoon students when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Is this Olivia Reed?" The voice was deep, with a slight accent she couldn't place. "Yes, that's me. This is Julian Hayes. I believe I received something of yours by mistake." Olivia's brow furrowed. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. "I'm sorry. What did you receive?" "A rather eloquent letter about how music saved you during your mother's illness, and how you believe it can build bridges between people when words fail. It was addressed to the Harrington Committee, but it was delivered to me. I'm in 1623, next door to their offices." The blood drained from Olivia's face as realization crashed over her. Julian Hayes, the composer whose work had redefined modern classical music, whose pieces she had studied reverentially at the conservatory, and he had read her raw, unfiltered thoughts about music and life and failure. "Mr. Hayes, I'm so sorry for the mix-up. I can come collect it right away and deliver it properly." "Actually," he paused, "I'd rather talk to you about it if you don't mind. Your perspective on the Sibelius Violin Concerto was refreshing. Would you be available to stop by my studio tomorrow, say around 2? Olivia's free hand gripped the edge of her desk, steadying herself. "Tomorrow at 2 would be fine," she managed, her voice surprisingly level despite the riot of emotions beneath. "Excellent. 1623 West Marlborough Street, 5th floor. I'll tell security to expect you." After they disconnected, Olivia sat motionless. The letter had been deeply personal. How she'd played violin at her mother's hospital bedside until the very end. How music had been her lifeline through grief. How she believed that true music came from brokenness rather than technical perfection. Things she'd never have had the courage to say to someone like Julian Hayes face to face. Now, through a simple mistake of a mail slot, the composer whose work had sustained her through her darkest days had read her innermost thoughts, and for some inexplicable reason, he wanted to talk to her about them. Olivia gently placed her phone down and looked at the student violin in her hands. For the first time in years, she felt something she'd nearly forgotten. Possibility hovering just beyond her reach. The unexpected invitation. The next day, Olivia stood frozen outside the sleek glass building that housed Julian Hayes' studio. Her reflection stared back, hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing her one presentable blazer over a simple black dress. She had practiced what to say all night, rehearsing apologies and explanations, but none seemed adequate. The security guard nodded her through after checking her ID. "Fifth floor, Miss Reed. Mr. Hayes is expecting you." The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors finally slid open, Olivia stepped into a minimalist space where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Boston skyline. A grand piano stood as the centerpiece, its polished surface reflecting winter light. Ah, the violinist with the wayward letter. Julian Hayes appeared from an adjoining room, less imposing than his photographs, but more striking. His salt-and-pepper hair was slightly disheveled, and he wore a simple gray sweater with the sleeves pushed up. At 40, he carried the quiet confidence of someone who had nothing left to prove. "Mr. Hayes, I'm mortified about the mix-up," Olivia began, clutching her violin case like a shield. He waved away her apology. "Please, call me Julian, and don't be. Your letter was the most honest thing I've read in years." He gestured toward a sitting area. "Would you like some tea? I've just made a pot." As he poured fragrant oolong into 2 ceramic cups, Julian studied her. "You wrote that music is an architecture of emotion. I've been thinking about that phrase since I read it." "I shouldn't have been so unguarded," Olivia said, accepting the tea with slightly trembling hands. "Why not? Isn't that precisely what music should be? Unguarded?" He sat across from her, his expression thoughtful. "I've spent 2 decades being celebrated for technical innovation, but your letter reminded me why I started composing in the first place." Olivia felt her carefully constructed professional facade cracking. "It's different for someone like me. When you're struggling to be taken seriously, vulnerability looks like weakness. And yet, it was your vulnerability that brought you here." Julian set his cup down. "Would you play something for me?" The request caught her off guard. "Play? Now?" "Yes, something that matters to you. Not for a scholarship committee or a review, just for the music itself." Heart pounding, Olivia removed her violin from its case. She closed her eyes, took a breath, and began playing. Not a technical showcase piece, but a simple folk melody her mother had loved. She let the music carry all the things she couldn't articulate: grief, hope, determination, fear. When she finished, the silence felt sacred. Olivia opened her eyes to find Julian looking at her with an expression of profound recognition. "That's what's been missing," he said quietly, almost to himself. "What has?" "Honesty. I've been so focused on breaking new ground that I forgot why ground is worth breaking." He stood abruptly. "I'm working on a new piece, a violin and piano duet for the Winter Light Festival. My usual collaborators are all technically flawless and emotionally vacant." He paused. "Would you consider working with me on it?" Olivia stared at him, certain she had misheard. "I'm a part-time teacher with a cafe gig. I'm not." "You're exactly what this piece needs." Julian's eyes held hers. Someone who understands that music isn't about perfection, it's about connection. As the winter sun began its early descent, casting long shadows across the studio floor, Olivia found herself nodding. Neither of them could possibly know that this unexpected invitation, born from a simple mail delivery error, was about to change everything.
H1. Harmonizing Lives. Events. Over the following weeks, Olivia's life transformed into a melody she had never dared imagine. 3 afternoons a week, she would climb the stairs to Julian's studio, violin in hand, heart racing with excitement and disbelief. Their collaboration began tentatively. Julian at the piano, Olivia standing a respectful distance away, each note between them a careful negotiation. Event. "Try it again," Julian would say, "but this time, don't think about the notes. Think about what you were feeling when you played that folk melody for me. The composition they worked on, Convergence, evolved from a technical exercise into something alive, something that seemed to breathe with them. When they played together, time dissolved. Sometimes they would work until the city lights blinked on outside the windows, neither of them noticing the transition from day to night. "You've changed the middle section," Olivia noted one evening, looking over the revised sheet music. Julian nodded, running a hand through his hair. It wasn't working. It was too controlled. He glanced at her, a small smile playing at his lips. "I'm learning to let go a little." It wasn't just the music that was changing. Julian, once described in music magazines as brilliantly cold and emotionally inaccessible, revealed himself in fragments. He told her about his childhood in Vienna, about the grandfather who had taught him piano, about the years of crippling self-doubt beneath his public success. Olivia shared, too, her mother's final days, her string of rejections, her tiny apartment where she practiced late into the night with a mute on her violin so as not to disturb the neighbors. They discovered a shared love of rainy Sundays, obscure poetry, and the particular shade of blue that appears just after sunset. The professional boundaries between them blurred like watercolors. When Julian's hand lingered on her shoulder during a rehearsal, neither acknowledged it. When Olivia brought him homemade soup after he caught a cold, they ate together in comfortable silence, watching snow fall over the city. But the world outside their musical sanctuary had opinions. Julian's agent, Vanessa, made her concerns clear during an unexpected visit to the studio. "The Winterlight Festival isn't the place for experimentation, Julian," she said, eyeing Olivia with thinly veiled skepticism. "The committee expects your usual standard of excellence." "This is excellence," Julian replied, his voice quiet but firm. "Just a different kind." Later, as Olivia packed up her violin, she overheard Vanessa's parting words. "She's not in your league, Julian. Professionally or otherwise, don't forget who you are." That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. Vanessa's words echoed in her mind, reinforcing doubts she'd been trying to silence. Who was she to think she belonged in Julian Hayes's world? The next morning, she arrived at the studio with careful distance restored. "What's wrong?" Julian asked immediately, noticing the change. "Nothing," Olivia replied, raising her violin. "Let's just focus on the music." Julian studied her face, his own expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded and turned to the piano. But as they played, something had shifted. The notes were technically perfect, but lacked the connection they'd found together. After an hour of fruitless practice, Julian abruptly closed the piano lid. "Enough," he said. "This isn't working." Olivia lowered her violin, heart sinking. "I understand if you want to find someone else for the festival." "I heard what Vanessa said," Olivia admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's right. I don't belong in your world, Julian. I'm just borrowing time here." Julian's expression softened. "Do you know why I kept your letter?" He moved to his desk and pulled out the envelope, now worn at the edges. "Not because of what you wrote about music, though that moved me deeply, but because when I read it, I recognized myself, the person I used to be before success built these walls around me." He gestured to the pristine studio. "You're not borrowing time in my world, Olivia. You're reminding me what it's supposed to be." The distance between them vanished as Julian reached for her hand. Their fingers intertwined, and the simple touch conveyed what neither had dared put into words. "The music works because we're honest in it," he said. "Perhaps we could try being honest outside of it too." That night, they played Convergence from beginning to end without a single mistake. The melody flowing between them, like a conversation too profound for words. As the final notes faded, Olivia knew they had created something remarkable, not just in music, but in the space between them, where something new was slowly, beautifully taking shape.
H1. Dissonance. 2 days before the Winterlight Festival, Olivia received a letter from the Barcelona Symphony Orchestra, offering her a 1-year position. The opportunity was everything she'd worked for: stability, recognition, a chance to prove herself on an international stage. But it meant leaving in 3 weeks. When she told Julian, his face remained carefully composed, but his eyes betrayed him. "You should take it," he said, hands poised above the piano keys. "It's what you've wanted." "And what about this?" Olivia asked, gesturing between them. "What about us?" Julian turned away. "There is no us, Olivia. There's the music we've made together, which has been extraordinary. But we both knew this was temporary." The words struck like physical blows. Had she misunderstood everything between them? The night of the Winterlight Festival arrived with painful formality. Backstage, they barely spoke. On stage, they performed flawlessly, the audience thunderous with approval. But the soul of the piece had vanished, replaced by technical precision that left Olivia feeling hollow. After the final bow, Julian disappeared into a crowd of admirers. The next morning, Olivia received a package containing a recording of their rehearsals, along with a note. "This is how I'll remember it." 2 weeks later, she boarded a plane to Barcelona, leaving behind an unfinished conversation and a melody that haunted her dreams. Perfect to cadence. 1 year later, Olivia stood in the grand foyer of the Salzburg Concert Hall, now a soloist with the Barcelona Symphony Orchestra touring Europe. The International Chamber Music Festival had brought musicians from around the world together, and although she had scanned the program repeatedly, Julian's name was conspicuously absent. Following her performance that evening, Olivia wandered to a small courtyard, seeking quiet. There, seated alone on a stone bench, was Julian, his profile illuminated by moonlight. "I heard you play tonight," he said, without turning. "You found your voice." Olivia sat beside him, the space between them charged with unspoken words. "And you? I haven't seen any new works from you this year." "I haven't been able to finish anything since Convergence," he admitted. "Nothing feels right." In the silence that followed, Olivia noticed the worn envelope in his hands. Her letter, still carried after all this time. "Why did you push me away?" she finally asked. Julian's gaze met hers. "Because I was afraid. Not that you didn't belong in my world, but that I didn't deserve to be in yours. You were just beginning your journey, and I thought I would only hold you back. Shouldn't that have been my choice?" A soft laugh escaped him. "You're right. I composed our ending without consulting you." He hesitated. "But perhaps we could try again. A new composition." Under the Austrian stars, Olivia reached for his hand. "I've always preferred works in progress to finished pieces anyway." 3 months later, in a sunlit apartment overlooking both Boston Harbor and a grand piano, 2 musicians worked side by side, sometimes in perfect harmony, sometimes in creative discord, but always honest in the music they made together.